Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Regional Council meeting of March the 10th. I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held in traditional territory of our friends, neighbors, and Treaty 8 partners at Fort Nelson First Nation and the Prophet River First Nation. We recognize the rights that are recognized in the treaty, and we also celebrate the contributions and enduring presence of the Métis people in our region. Please be advised tonight's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually, is being streamed and recorded. Are there any additions, council, tonight's meeting? Staff, any additions? Thank you. This is an opportunity for any public who may wish to have any comments on tonight's agenda. Are there any online? Is there any in the gallery? Okay, thank you. Adoption of the agenda is in order, please. Moved by Councillor Soul, second by Councillor Roper. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. There are 3 sets of minutes here. Committee of the Whole, February 24th, Special Regional Council meeting, February 24th, and the Regional Council meeting of February 24th. Minutes for adoption. Moved by Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Gerwing. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Was carried. Thank you. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, then I'll move to business. Yeah, 6.1, BC Freshwater Fishing Society. Papers, you guys. It's just on me. Mr. Barry, no kidding. Mr. Barry, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Enex at the last meeting asked about the burrow pits and the stocking of the burrow pits. So Director Thompson did some follow-up with the ministry and confirmed that last year, 3 of the burrow pits, so 1, 4, and 8 were stocked last year. And their stocking program is going to be every second year, so every even year. So 2026 is the next stocking. And then there's a reassessment of the stocking prescriptions in 2028. So I'll follow up with an email tomorrow with council, so just with the link. I think I might have sent it out a couple of years ago, but the link to the stocking program, it shows what was stocked, the type of fish and the amount.
Any questions? Thank you for that report. That brings us to 7.1, which is the ATF grant application. Ms. Glaves, please.
Good evening. So this report highlights a federal funding opportunity through the Housing Infrastructure and Communities Canada Active Transportation Fund, which provides for projects aimed at active transportation throughout Canada. The Community Trail Improvements Project is planned to occur over the coming years due to aging conditions throughout the trail. The trail serves as a key component of active and accessible transportation throughout the community and aligns well with the objectives of the funding program. Which covers up to 60% of total project cost, meaning if the application is successful, we will be able to expand the scope significantly while maintaining the same level of contribution from the NRM. So today we're simply seeking council support in that application.
Are there any questions for Ms. Glaves? Councilor Roper.
So the project is for renewal more or less, or expansion?
Yeah, so it's for renewal of the existing trail. So it's slated for removal and replacement of asphalt within the capital plan. However, the expanded scope would allow us to include some accessibility features like benches and potential lighting throughout the trail. So we'd be looking at expanding that scope and still maintaining NRM's contribution at the same level.
Thank you. Good. Any other questions? Okay, there is a recommendation there. It's council's wishes. Councilor Andrews?
I'll make a motion that council support an application to the Housing, Infrastructure and Community Canada Active Grant Transportation Fund Program for the Community Trail Improvements Project, $450,000, equivalent to 60% of the total project cost.
Moved by Councilor Andrews. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Roper. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Are there any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business is admin port 1625, the BCAAP grant application. Staff, please. Welcome, Ron.
Good evening. Okay, so I'm here on behalf of the Northern Rockies Regional Airport, and I'm asking for council support for an application to the BC Air Access Program for a pilot rest station project in the amount of $18,750, which is equivalent to 75% of the total project costs. Little background on the pilot rest station. It's a project that aims to establish a secure, quiet, and comfortable rest area within the terminal building on a secure side of the terminal building to provide aircraft personnel with a designated space to take breaks, thus encouraging alertness and safe air operations. The need for this rest station was emphasized last year during the wildfire event, when air resources from neighboring regions and provinces were required to rest on their aircraft between provision of medevac services and firefighting services. The absence of sufficient rest locations for the pilots made this arrangement necessary. So what I'm asking for is council support and an application to the BCAA program for a pilot rest station in the amount of $18,750.
Thanks for the report, Ron. Are there any questions?
No, just where would you put it?
We already have a location in the secure part of the terminal building. We've currently been using that for our maps and some cleaning supplies, and it's just being underutilized. So it's a good area, good space.
And how many beds would you put in there, or would you put beds, or would it just be?
No, we weren't thinking beds. We were just thinking it's a quiet space for them. We'd put some couches in there, blinds on the windows, redo the walls and the ceiling and the lights and the flooring.
So not a sleep, just a true rest area, not a sleeping area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We don't expect they'd have that much, what I see out there is when the medevacs come in, if the ambulance attendants are with the airplane, then they go into town to package up and transport back to the airplane. So the pilots would be waiting a couple hours probably.
Hmm,
So,
good place for, rather than having to sit in the cockpit.
yeah, in the wintertime, it's not good. So.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. Council, what are your wishes? Council Roper?
I'll make a motion that council support an application to the British Columbia Air Access Program for the pilot rest station project for $18,750, equivalent to 75% of the total project costs.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Roper. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Souls. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Are there any opposed? Good.
Thank you.
That's approved. 7.3 on the agenda is admin report 1725, Fire Smart Committee terms of reference updates. Mr. Cavalier?
Good evening, Mayor, councilors, esteemed colleagues. So we have a number of proposed amendments to the TOR that I'll speak to. One of them is that the four agencies at the table be asked to appoint an alternate to the committee. That's one recommendation. The current TOR has no mechanism for admitting new members, so I've developed a application form that was based on our EOI format. It was made available. I'm not sure if you all saw it, but it's a very simple application. It comes to me, it goes to the committee, and then comes to council. The third amendment is for travel, for assisting members with travel outside the community. So specifically, this would apply currently with the current makeup of the committee, membership from Prophet River and from Toad. as those are probably the only two that currently qualify for the reimbursement according to our travel policy. As a note, we did provide that in 2022, council had resolved the reimbursement. We were just coming back to council to once again bring it in front of this council for approval. And then the fourth recommendation is there's no mechanism for termination for non-attendance. The wording for this one came right out of the EAC tour. And then the final request, Chief Counselor Archie Harold had asked that Kim Diamond C be appointed to the committee as an alternate. So that's before you as well.
Thank you. And I think I had one addition, and that was for individuals who may be requesting alternates. And so I did hear, I thought I heard at that meeting that they thought not just the agencies, but there are some individuals, and I speak to Dr. Lavercus particularly because she was the one who had sort of addressed it, that, she'll be extremely busy in the fire season. Actually, there's two of them, right? Just forgetting his name, Byron, thank you very much, who are very active in the fire season, and they would like to appoint somebody. I would like to see that they go through the same application process, right, to make sure that they've got what the committee is looking for as new members, but only they'd be coming in as alternate members. I mean, they have the ability to sit as an alternate, as a member of the public in the committee space, or it would be up to the committee member to keep them informed and up to date. But we would expect that if they came as an alternate, that they'd come ready to participate. So I'd like to make that amendment to the report as well. So that would become actually sort of part of two, admitting new members and member alternates, right? Or an extension of one, either way. So if you guys would accept that, that would be 5, I guess, points, and then the appointment of Mr. Diamond C. What are your wishes? So the recommendation is to approve those changes to the terms of reference, and then to admit Mr. Diamond C be appointed to the committee.
I had a question.
Okay.
You mentioned that there's only 2 members that require travel and accommodation reimbursement at this point.
Yeah, pardon me, 3, because we have 2 members from Toad. And it could be as many as 4, actually. Thank you for clarifying that. Currently, we have no membership from Profit, but we've also, in the terms of asked Profit to provide an alternate once they have one. And the 2 members that are out of Toad River. So there's potentially 4. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a fair proposal, given we want as much buy-in from the as much of the municipality as possible. So
Is there opportunity to attend these meetings virtually?
Yes.
And so that would potentially limit the
Big-
amount of travel expenses for sure.
Councilor Goodwin?
So we're not considering paying a travel reimbursement for a member and an alternate? Like, I would assume that we would reimburse travel for the member or the alternate, but
Yeah.
not, because, right?
Yes.
Okay, just to confirm that,
Yeah.
thanks.
I thank you. I think we'll just make sure we clarify that when I rewrite the tour after this to capture what you just said for sure.
And the only other thing I would take out the pre-approval and just have the word approval. Because for instance, the one time that one of the members did, he got here from Toad River and it was snowing like crazy, he didn't want to go home. So he took a hotel room on it. We wouldn't be able to do a pre-approval for that, right? But we could do an approval after, and certainly that's where, either one of the 2 co-chairs who would be doing the approvals will say, no, I'm only going to approve one, I can't approve both of you. So, yeah.
Good point. I'll make sure we capture that as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any more questions? What are your wishes?
I'd like to make a motion that the terms of reference with the noted amendments for the Fire Smart and Resiliency Committee be amended as recommended, and that Kim Diamond C be appointed to the Community Fire Smart Resiliency Committee as a representative of the Fort Nelson First Nations.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Andrews. Do I have a seconder? Second by Counselor Souls. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Are there any opposed?
Thank you, council.
That passes. Okay, that takes us to report number 1825, the Navigate the NRM Transportation Plan for follow-up. Do we have staff? Oh, Mitch is online. Hi, Mitch.
Yeah, hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. So this report in front of you here is for discussion. There's a lot of information in here just in regards to the items that wanted some follow-up on. So that's the taxi, the seniors bus ride hailing and carpooling. As along with a bunch of information in class 4 licensing. The reason I set this for discussion was just in terms of the conclusion there is that out of all of these pieces, when doing the research and just looking into the background, is there are some actionable items with potentially looking at building a budget or looking at doing some class 4 training in the community. So just wanted feedback, thoughts, council's direction on this.
Anybody have any comments? Counselor Gerwing, please.
Didn't Northern Lights College just do some sort of driver training in our community? I don't know if it was class 4. Anybody know?
I'm not aware.
The air brake course that was put on.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, but we do have a private service provider in town that can do the training. It's my understanding, right? So Mitch, do we feel that the reason why people are not taking it is it's cost prohibitive or?
So there's no class 4 training in town. I did quite a bit of research on this and I reached out to Northern Lights College and they have a special trainer for this. And so yes, it would be cost prohibitive. And under the class 4 licensing there, it breaks down the difference between a restricted and unrestricted. So the unrestricted is actually, it's a more in-depth course with a significant more amount of information and requirements and standards. And so with that, the current providers in town aren't able to do it. Although I actually saw a Jen Riggs post something today I was going to follow up on, which I didn't have a chance to do. But as far as I know, at this point, there's no providers able to do that testing. So they would have to come into town to do that.
The other point I wanted to make about this is I went into the classification schedule of BC driver's license. A class one driver can drive these buses. So, I know there's a lot of class 1 drivers who may or may not be employed, at this time. So, I'd sure like to see, if this is a recruiting process for this shuttle that we're anticipating and that we're going to get going, I'd be looking at the class 1 drivers in town as well, rather than trying to, pull together a bunch of class 4 drivers that we might have to spend a bunch of money on. The class 1 drivers can do the same thing and they're already licensed. Go ahead, Councilor Andrews.
Have you been able to contact the You Can Drive in town locally, Mitch?
Yeah, so
Because
I spoke with, I can't remember who it was, but I was told that they don't provide class 4 training.
Okay. I've noticed it on their websites. I haven't contacted them myself. That's just look for clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any other questions?
Just
Counselor Souls?
the comment regarding the current taxi license holder and the willingness to open and operate the business, but noting that the business may not be economical. Is there any definition to that, or do we have to imagine, what is your feel that he was saying? What did he actually say? it wouldn't be economical, therefore he doesn't want to try to make it, or?
Yeah, so I'll stick to pretty high level because
Yeah,
it's
pretty high
his
level,
story.
okay.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I have encouraged him a couple times. He was out of the country, which is why he wasn't here. But I have encouraged him to write in to council to be able to tell his story and speak with you directly. He essentially has said he's willing to do it. Although, you know, in the event that it may not be profitable, he doesn't want to operate at a loss, was his biggest thing. And so, once again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but my understanding would be that if he was to operate, there would be a protection measure there.
Okay. I think there's no further questions, Mitch, so thanks. I don't know that I'm hearing that we want to subsidize class 4 drivers. Yeah. So, and me either, with the number of class 1s potentially that we have in this community, so. So thanks for the report, appreciate your time, and yeah, hopefully folks will look at this and somebody might decide that a taxi service might be something they might be interested in applying for. So thanks for your time, Mitch, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, move on to 7.5, which is Administration Report 19, Andy Bailey Project Update. Staff, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So after the last presentation on a month ago now to the day, I wanted to better illustrate the changes that we had in the design, as it was apparent that I did a good job of that. So I put this PDF package in there as well. Doesn't print very well, but we have to have it set up so we can put it on the TV as well if you guys would like. Or if you're comfortable with what you have there, I can just speak to it directly. It's up to you.
I think if you, is there anybody streaming on, is there anybody watching online? They probably would want to see it. And the folks in the room might want to see it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I can share it.
While she's bringing that up, I guess I can fill the
Sure.
space. So
let's get
we originally presented the 95% completion design in October 10th of 2023, with an estimated cost for that entire project at $985,000. Since then, there was the archaeological study that had to come forward that with some findings in there. But at that meeting, council provided direction to reduce the overall project design to maximize the grant funding we had secured of $538,000. So the current design that we have right now is adjusted and is estimated at $587,000, including some general requirements and contingencies, to stay within that secured grant funding, as well as, or to maximize the grant funding, sorry, as well as a contribution from the NRM for $49,000, which is included in the budget consideration. I kept it as a PDF because I'm not super good at stripping that down and changing it into PowerPoint or something like that. And it's a pretty technical type because they're just the actual drawings that we have for the project. But as I mentioned, they don't print super well, especially if you're on 8.5 by 11 or even 11 by 17. So it's better on the screen there. But so the first one here, this is what we actually have at the park right now. So this is our current layout. As you come in the road, the loop with campgrounds, and then the boat launch and the additional day parking. And then the next slide is the one that we had presented back in 2023, which was the original design that we had come up with. So you can see there was some additional trail networks. This was heavily focused on accessibility, but then also took the parts from the community engagement that people had said that they wish to see out there and implemented it into a complete design. From there, after the archaeological study, we went to the next one, which is there's some zones in there that have kind of our areas where we need to avoid. So it limited the design of that. And so the team, that's the overall, so it shows the campgrounds with the two at the top that have a little bit of extra gravel to adjust them to allow for better pull-through traffic. So like very large RVs, things like that. That was the intention there. As well as the 5 outhouses being replaced with accessible outhouses and pathways so that people could get to them. And then the stuff focused closer on the boat launch beach area, which is kind of highlighted in the next slide, which is this one. And as we've discovered, it's not super clear on what it actually is, but this is zoomed in on the boat launch. So the boat launch is kind of in the upper left corner where you come down, launch your boat into the water, and there's a bit of a dash. It's a dash line that's super zoomed in. That is the actual water line. In this design, we've kept the bug shelter, which is on the right. There is, so yeah, on this one you can see, so in the top left, we have the accessible changing structure, storage shed, which is kind of on the side of the boat launch. And then across the boat launch, there is some extra gravel put in there for some accessible parking right next to the beach for people with mobility issues. A pathway down the beach a little bit to the bottom of the bug shelter, and then also a concrete path to the top of the bug shelter for people with mobility issues to get in. And then right below the mouse there is the beach mat, which would be something we would install ourselves and purchase just to save the markup and cost that way. And then the last thing you can see on this one is to the left, bottom left corner is the accessible dock with the kayak launch. So those are all of the things that we are trying to get with this grant, with this current design. So I know there was some things that everyone was wishing to get from that, being the sand and things like that, but trying to focus on the things that we can get with this grant and hopefully proceed with all that stuff as it is right now. I think these upgrades would greatly benefit the park and all of our patrons. The other slides in there, I put them in there. They're more just the details of the actual individual features. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have on that. And yeah, going forward, if we wanted to proceed in the archaeological area, because I know that was a big question, especially the beach part. There is a bit of a process to that. In doing that, we would need more detailed site investigations from the AIA team. And then depending on what those findings or what findings are, any further findings, there may be more work required, or we may be able to apply for a site or site alteration permit, but it'll depend a lot on what's found in there. And just a timeline for that, if we did want to proceed with something like that, we could potentially start now, and we may have something available that we could do in the spring of 2026. But it is pretty costly. Just a rough base estimate for that, for the archaeological work and the site permit, assuming they don't find anything major in there, it was about $300K. So pretty steep price tag. And then we also had another note in here that given the AIA findings in there, council may wish to consider including some interpretive signage within the park, maybe to recognize the cultural significance to the local and neighboring indigenous communities, and that can be developed within collaboration with the archaeological consultant and the neighboring nations.
Thank you.
That's a whole lot of information to throw at you, I'm sure.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the report. Are there any questions? Councilor Grooming.
Yeah, just want to go on the record that I think that having the accessible change room on the other side of the boat launch isn't, I would like to see it on the right-hand side by the bug shelter, so that all of that is in one area, so that you have less pedestrian traffic going through that parking and driveway. So you're going down to launch your boats or coming back up, just to reduce the pedestrian traffic. I think it would make sense to move that to the right-hand side by that bug shelter somewhere.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great recommendation. We can definitely look into that.
Was that a question of room?
I'm not sure. It doesn't look, based on this, it doesn't look that big. I know up where the mouse is, that's where you start going up the hill. So in order to get in there, it'd be lots of trees and grubbing that you have to take away, block part of the bank, or else build it up high enough that you couldn't access it. But potentially in between those two walkways, there may be a place there where you can put it in and potentially even tie into the accessible ramp there that goes to the bug shelter or something like that. So I think
Right,
that's a good
because then
viable
it's all
option.
right there. The walkway's
Mm.
there and the bug shelter's there and the change area is all right there, so.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. We can try that for sure.
Okay, with respect to the, oh, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, I was just
Councilor.
gonna say that, given the parameters we've had to work within after the ARC assessment and stuff, I think this is a good compromise for sure. And it gives us a spot, especially with our wish list there, that this can be phased in, like we've talked about at a couple other meetings where like this can be phase one. And then perhaps we can bring in our local First Nations and we can develop the rest of it together, and that might help as well.
So I would be okay, approving this in principle. But now that we have an archaeological report that shows there's some sort of archaeological history there, I think we should be discussing this with our First Nation neighbor. I think that, they may help us with the fact that maybe they don't see it as a historical site, even though there was some, because they've been using this the same amount of time as everybody else has been using it. And, maybe then we could find out whether or not this is a provincial requirement once they find that there is an archaeological find of some type or another, or whether or not the local First Nation is able to help you pass that if they don't see it as significant. So or they may see it as significant. We don't know until we ask them. But I do know that the Port Nelson First Nation has several sites around the region that they actively use as archaeological or as historical sites, where they, do gathering or hunting or whatever. And this is not one of them, right? They certainly haven't complained to us so far that this park has been developed the way it has. So to me, before we go ahead and spend almost $600,000 on this, I think the next step would be to logically talk to the nation to find out what they think, because maybe they don't want us to proceed, or maybe they'll go, we didn't know there was anything there, or maybe they'll finally come out and say, we've been thinking about this for a long time, we just didn't know how to approach it. I mean, there's so many different angles that the nation could take based on this, but I think before we start doing some major renovations down there, we should speak to our neighbor. My thoughts, but I'd be okay approving it in principle, as long as we talk to our neighbor. My thoughts. Councilor Roper?
What's the the deadline for initiating and completing the project from the grant perspective? How long do we have until we can no longer access that grant, is what I'm asking.
So right now, an extension has been secured to the September of this year. So we can reach out and try to extend it again and maybe push it into next year or continue on for a longer time. But as it is right now, it's September of this year. That's why we're hoping to try and get this moving into this year.
So that is September as a start date or a
No, as a
completion?
completion, like all reporting completed and everything.
And the
Yeah,
project
September.
complete
Project completed.
by September of this year?
Yeah.
Oh. okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so our next steps would be from this, to take this to tender so that we can secure construction contractors. Ideally, we do have a bird nesting window potentially, which starts kind of beginning of May. I believe it's May 8th. Where if we run into that, then there is additional costs that we may have to incur if we need to do any tree removal at that time, because we'll need to do bird nesting studies to make sure they're not there. And that could cause delays or extra costs. And then also the in-water works, there's a small window there where we can't do any in-water works, but it's just July 15th to August 15th. So for a month there, we can't do anything in the water. This one's not super invasive in the water, just a couple anchors for the dock. Less so than when we were intending to put beach sand and that kind of thing. But it is a factor as well.
Okay, what do you wishes?
I'd like to make a motion that the Andy Bailey Provincial Park accessibility upgrades proceed with the revised design with mentions of trying to move the change room on the same side as the bug shelter.
So approving it in principle is off the table?
I feel the culturally significant areas have been flagged, and for this development of this phase, I think we should just go ahead with the timeline and bring in our partners to look at the rest of it, is how I think we should.
I was just gonna say, I think we can proceed with the revised design, but also concurrently take those steps to consult with the First Nations and get as much information as we can about the rest of it, because there's a future potential for more development, I feel. But I don't want to lose this grant.
Anybody else? Seeing none, all in favor? Are there any opposed? I'm opposed, and I'd like to put my name on that as opposed, please. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to correspondence.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That brings us to admin report 1925, oh, no, sorry, correspondence for discussion. A letter from Northern Rockies Tourism Event Society and the Rotary Club of Fort Nelson. 8.1, kind of a motion to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Gerwig, second by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So this letter is on the floor for discussion. Does staff have any comments? The report is there. Or so not a report, sorry, but the letter is there.
So I can comment a little bit. So
Sure.
I was back and forth with Ms. Enox on the request, just highlighting the opportunity for application under the facility fee waiver program as a potential because the Event Society or the Rotary Club for that matter would be eligible for up to 4 waivers annually. So she had indicated that the intent was to apply through that program for the park related waivers and equipment related waivers. And then I inquired on the part of the request that refers to waiver of a business license. Just in terms of that being linked to the business license bylaw and waiving a bylaw isn't always a best practice, but obviously at the discretion of council. So in terms of, I tried to understand if the limitation or the barrier was the cost of the business license or the process around the business license, but we didn't ultimately conclude what that was. So I think CAO Barry may have some more information on that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we have a representative from the Event Society here, if that can clarify. I'm thinking can clarify that, if council would like to ask some questions specific to the business license piece. I think that's the outstanding item. In terms of, for clarification, I guess.
Sure. I'll need a motion to ask Todd up to the table. Moved by Councillor Goering, second by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Please, Todd. Welcome back.
Sorry about that. I should have asked at the beginning when you asked if anybody in the gallery wanted to speak about anything on there. And then you had moved on too quick and I said, I guess we'll just deal with it when we get time. So as for the fee waiver and that sort of thing, there was just a lot of stress last year, it being its first year, and we had no idea of a lot of things that needed to happen. We weren't aware of this business license or that we had to have our inspector come on site, and we didn't find out until I think about 12 hours prior to the event starting. So I think that that's what started a little bit of an issue last year, but it all worked out fine. Everything was good on our end, and all the due diligence was done by the town, and that was all good. I think we could just strike the wave of that fee off this. That's not going to hold up anything. And at least now we have a lot of time. We know what needs to happen so we can make plans. We can have the inspector on cue ready to go when these guys come and set up. So I don't think there'd be any issue there. But as for just getting back to so Guyver here was saying about putting in for fees. I know that there is the grant and aid process or the fee waivering and that sort of thing, but I really would like to see the town become a part of this event, not just, waive some fees so an organization could put on an event. I've been pushing for tourism in this community now for about 7 years, I think. And there's been a lot of individual groups trying to put off events in the town. The Fort Nelson Tourism and Event Society has been a really big pusher of these things. That's why we changed the name to Tourism and Events. We have many of the other groups in town that come to us for help to put off their events. But this one in particular, our idea was to really start bringing in, new dollars to the community. And I think last year we proved that. We had visitors come down, specifically come down from Watson Lake, from all up through the Northwest Territories. I mean, Fort Providence, there was quite a few people here. Port Simpson, people came down to make the trip. Pardon me?
People stayed extra days.
Yeah, people stayed extra days at the campground. I actually came in and stayed at the campground for the weekend because I was working that event and going back and forth. And so I spoke to a lot of people that were here that were passing through. And once they realized we're having a Rip Fest, they're like, oh, we're sticking around for the whole weekend. And then once they found out there was entertainment, they were in. They made notice that they really wish they would have known about this because they had quite a few people in their group that carried through that they know they would have wanted to stay. So we're
Some of
hoping
the
to make
people-
this a.
Some
fun
of you
event.
volunteered. They were.
Yeah, they did,
volunteers
yeah, they
selling
worked,
tickets.
they worked they're actually customers of mine that were stuck here anyways, and they decided to come and volunteer their time and actually talking about coming back this year. So
Cool.
yeah, it's more than just a community event. And this is the thing that the Tourism and Event Society, we're trying to do things that are more than just community oriented events. We're looking to drive tourism dollars into our community. So not just waiving these events or these fees, but actually getting on board with some of these. I'd really like to see the town get a little bit more involved. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. I did have a question, I guess with respect to and maybe it sounds a little bit petty, but which of the organizations is going to ask for the it's not a sponsorship, it's a fee waiver, right? Because there's 4 a year, right? So I'd hate to see both of them use this as one, when really it's only one of there's 8 there, and why use up 2 when you only need to use 1? Rotary or the Northern Rockies? Because they both they both might have 4 in the year, right? Because both of them are fairly active.
Yeah, you bet. Well, like I said, that's more to the point for me, for us, is that I know that there is that process, but I'd like to see if there's some way that the community, the town would actually get involved in this event and us maybe not even have to use this fee waiver, because I see what that is more designed for community events that are meant for community members. This is not just a community event meant for community members. This is actually looking to drive tourism. That's why we went after this, to bring it here. It wasn't just brought here to bring an extra choice of food for locals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I'm not sure who it would be.
We're in the process of looking at a government transfer process, and sponsorships is part of the discussion that we're having around that.
Yeah.
And, whether we're taking an event on like this or whether it's being sponsored, it's all part of that whole discussion around government transfers. Councilor,
Can you give me a couple of examples of how the municipality could take more initiative? Other than say, waiving a fee or contributing financially? What exactly do you have in mind? I'm
Well,
interested.
For right now, I just feel like, okay, both of these organizations, the Tourism Event Society as well as Rotary, put off many events throughout the year that are specifically designed, for community events, for just our community. So I have no issues there. We come in and we ask for those fee waivers for those events. But when it comes to an event like this, I just feel it would be good to bring in the town as a partner. We could give you that isolation of that it's not the town running the event, so you don't have to worry about staffing it and that sort of thing. But at least if you come on board, like I said, as a sponsor of the event, and just take care of these things without us having to use up one of those waiver forms. But like I said, I'm not sure which one it would be. I'm sure we would make sure that it's only one or the other. We wouldn't put both their names on there to use up too, I can guarantee you.
Well, yeah, I think it's, you know, if council decides to move with a resolution, I think we need to have which one, name of them in there.
Tourism Event Society then.
Yeah, okay. And the
I
other.
don't want to hold it up for that. so.
Yeah, well, that's right. And I guess the other thing, you know, to me, it potentially looks like Gold Panning in Taylor, right? Or it looks like High on Ice in Fort St. John. So those are examples, I think, where the communities actually will take on an event in a big way. Yeah, yeah.
I could just add a little bit too.
Sure.
So we're currently still running on a federal grant that's helping us, paying for a lot of promotion and that sort of thing. So now we're up to the tune of $500,000 that the federal government has invested in helping the Tourism Event Society push for tourism in the Northern Rockies. And I don't feel like we've had, you know, near 10% of that come from, you know, top up from the community. So that's why I'm saying we've pushed this far. We've proven our point to the federal government, proven our point to the provincial government, but it doesn't seem like we're getting through at our local government. So just hope that we can change that going forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Penny.
Maybe a question for CIO Barry. Is there anything the municipality could do, maybe from the rec center side of things to kind of bring this together a little bit more as a tourism event rather than just a community event?
Yeah, there's lots of options, I guess. It depends what they are and then the capacity. It's something, I guess, that we can have a conversation to try to truly understand what the event society is like looking for, or what examples. I've taken the examples that the mayor brought up just to take a look at that, but at the same time, you know, it depends on what the ask is, what the opportunity is. So we're not really quite sure right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, there's been a standing policy that there's no sponsorships, right, by the municipality. And it's been there for.
We just talked about that
Yeah,
today.
yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Is we're having the discussion around, you know, sponsorships and whether the municipality is into sponsorships or it's just a government transfer that, you know, we budget money and we give, you know, the different groups around the community a certain amount of operational money and whether or not that includes capital, that's the discussion and debate that we're having right now, Councillor Goring.
I forget, so sorry, remind me, are there dollars associated with our tourism advisory group? Like, did we earmark some dollars for promotion, or like, is that a way that the local government can get more involved in local tourism strategies through that group?
In terms of promoting or advertising?
Like, is there any money? I thought we had associated some money for projects within that group, but
Yeah, we
I
just can't
could be
recall.
misremembering that.
Yeah, yeah. No. Off the top of my head, there's something that we can discuss as part of the budget process. I'll have that on a docket for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it's like, as you know, from your years being on local government, it gets a little complicated as to how a local government can get directly involved with an organization's tourism associated event, right? So there needs to be some sort of clear ask, I guess, from my perspective, and then a clear pathway to being able to extend that to group A, B, or C, right? So right now I'm just unsure of what the ask is and then, yeah, and then what the pathway could be if you're wanting more than a fee waiver, what that would be, and then how we could get there, if that made any sense.
If I could just clarify it. Sure. I'm not asking right now for anything more than a fee waiver.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just saying that something that put the bug in everybody's ear that going forward, I think we're gonna have to start putting some money towards tourism and these events. But for this particular event, we're hoping for a fee waiver that wouldn't take away from our other fee waivers, because this event in particular is more towards bringing tourism dollars in from outside of the community more than just a local one. But I understand that you guys are working on that, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Penny.
So I think we are looking for a motion for the Northern Rockies Tourism Event Society to waive fees for the Art Fraser Park, access to water and power, waiving of rental fees for the use of the Blue Red event tents and the mobile stage. I think that's everything in there.
Can I question?
Yes, you can.
So there typically isn't a charge for Art Fraser Park, right? It's public, and so we don't charge any user fee for that. So they wouldn't be a fee waiver for that, but the other ones, like, yeah. And it's for more than one day. So, I mean, this could actually take all 4 fee waivers for the Event Society, because I think it's set up of 1 day and then Rib Fest is 2 days and then takedown, so 4 days. So that takes the, oh, it's 3 days, okay. So then it's, yeah, it does, well, and I guess we can move forward with using it and then talking about it later and coming up with another plan, because it will take their whole yearly allotment to host Rib Fest.
So this might just be a waiver of the policy, honestly, because there's an application process and confirmation of availability and confirmation of the request, but that's, so right now I checked that there's been no application submitted on this at this point. So if we're considering the request outside of the policy process, then it might just be your determination in terms of what equipment's being granted, and it's just tricky, because if something comes up outside of this request that's needed in addition, do we bring it back to you, or do we review that at the staff level, which is how we've been implementing that policy since it was adopted? It's just it's a bit out of the norm in terms of how we've been implementing that policy already. So we just need some guidance, I guess, if this is the request and council's prepared to consider it and approve it as it's been provided, then that's fine. But then we just need to understand if there's more to the request that comes later. Are we bringing it back to council, or are you comfortable with us reviewing that with them?
Does the current fee waiver process include the tents, the stage, or is it only facilities?
Oh, it's all that large equipment as well. So the only exemptions are the kind of consumables related to the community hall kitchen. And there were certain spaces that were exempted, like the pool, for example, and ice surfaces.
Right.
But we did include the tents and the showmobile and the larger equipment, as well as the hall and stuff. And you're correct, there's no fee with our Fraser Park. But we do book it so that there's knowledge of what's going on there.
So then probably the appropriate course of action then is, I would agree with you, is to waive the fee policy, waive the waiver of fees policy, and allow the use of Art Fraser Park, the event tents, and the mobile stage for the Northern Rockies Tourism Event Society. Gets it done, doesn't take away one of the, or potentially 4 of them, right? We're just saying this is good enough for the community that we would waive that policy and allow them to carry this off by waiving the rental fees for the tents and the mobile stage. That's, I haven't made, it's not a motion, I'm just saying, is that where we at? It's one or the other.
May I?
Yeah, please.
So I love that idea, but then you get to thinking, well, then you have the next group that comes along to say that this is a tourism related, let's just say the art walk, or not art walk, but street festival, right? Where they have the same thing. They're geared towards bringing tourism into our community. So I'm really struggling because we just had a meeting earlier today, Mr. Penny, about our whole government transfer policy. So it's, yeah. It just like, you know, it's like, where does it end? Which is why we brought the policy in the first place, was so that it's fair and equitable for everyone. But Mr. Penny makes the case that this is outside of the norm of a community event. It's actually trying to bring new dollars into our community. Yeah.
Oh. And I think that's just to Mr. Penny's point, is that it gives us the opportunity to be more involved. Instead of providing something for someone else, we are doing something with a partner or with other organizations, but it's not for them, it's for the community. And the betterment of the community is getting those tax dollars into the community.
Is it any different than the trade show
Yeah.
that we said we wouldn't partner with but one time because they were in real dire straits?
So we provided an extensive financial component to
Yes, we
that,
did.
where we're not necessarily doing that for this, so might be a little easier.
Welcome back. Yeah, we didn't ask you to leave. You left on your own.
I would definitely like to make the point that the Tourism and Event Society, since our inception in 2019, we brought thousands of people so far through the community. Our very first festival in 2019, we brought, I don't have all the numbers, but there were supposed to be thousands, but lots of political things went on in the world, but we brought hundreds. We brought, probably in total 400 or 500 people that came here. And obviously, then we've all been struggling with COVID since then and still battling through. And on top of that, the amount of events that we actually put off in a year, like we run out of our grant funding, our fee waivers or whatever, we're going to run out of those every year besides this particular event. I understand where you're coming from when it comes to the street festival, because they can definitely argue the point that they bring in outside people, but I don't think you'll hear from us when it comes to our other regular community events that we have. We'll work within the guidelines of the policy and get our fee waivers, but we're definitely going to run out, and especially if we had to use one for each day that we're going to have this equipment, it would probably wear out our fee waiver in one event. So, like I said, we've been pushing so hard for so long. We've brought in so many people. I know we have lists. I mean, we have lists of people that we've brought here. I mean, hundreds upon hundreds of people that we've managed to come to the community and repeatedly come back. So I don't think that we quite compare with other groups in the community and how we've proved ourselves so far for tourism. So that's all.
At this moment in time, you may be absolutely right about that, but there's a fairness issue here that we're grappling with. I mean, we grappled with it this afternoon or earlier today when we were talking about this. We were grappling, with the idea of, what's the value of the benefit to the community? It's so subjective between each group. Other groups might say, yeah, we're just as good as they are.
Well, they will.
Right?
But can we, thank you. Can we have some time to consider, can we approve this in principle, whether it's a fee waiver or another mechanism, we are going to provide these tents and the show, whatever. We're gonna do it, but can we take some time to think about how that could work out?
Well, first heard deferred. They're not
Right?
looking for a decision today.
I would like some time to consider,
We're going to have this event. It's going to happen regardless. So, I mean,
And we're
whether-
gonna provide everything you request except for the waiver of the business license,
yeah.
but we can work out the details of how that's going to happen. Give us some time to think about it.
I mean, we're in the budget process now, which is all part of this.
Yeah.
Having these discussions and
sounds better than a no.
I don't think I don't think it's a no, but first heard deferred, so.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity for us to take this away and then get back to you guys. Okay, Councilor
And
Roper.
maybe instead of waiving a policy which brings in an unfairness, maybe we can extend extra events within the policy. I know that when I need a temporary liquor license, I can get 2 a month, but if I need a third one, I can ask for it and they can make a determination whether I get that or not. So maybe, maybe if you're doing multiple events or lots of events, or you need more fit waivers, we can provide that because it extends the reach of what you can do. And if you have the capacity to put on more events, well, perhaps there's a consideration for extending the policy instead of waiving it. So.
Yeah, and we said when we put 4 in that we didn't know if that was appropriate or not, that's a changeable thing. Based on, well, let's see what 4 does. We plucked it out of the air. I mean, it might not, it's not hard and fast.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just one quick comment. We provided support last year and I didn't see a plethora of new ones come in, the slippery slope or the outcry of the community that we weren't being fair.
And if I may, and maybe it's for facility use, like there's 4 times you can use one of our facilities, but this, I mean, the park is not quite the same thing as the rec center community hall, right? So should it be considered in the same way? Like it just gives us more to think about.
Okay, so we'll defer this decision till after the budget discussions.
With the understanding that we're going to provide it, like they know that they know they're gonna get it.
You know,
they're We just aren't clear on what mechanism we're gonna use, right?
well, I can't say that without putting a resolution
That sounds like
together.
a pre-approval.
I think we're just gonna defer. I mean, take away the discussion that you heard here today. Right? Take the discussion away. I don't want to commit unless we're putting a resolution on the floor. So we can defer it and we can come back with a resolution later. But I heard consensus around the table. We just haven't figured out exactly how. So.
Okay, so it's deferred until when? Next
Af-
meeting?
After.
After budget?
After budget, just after budget discussions this week,
Okay.
right? So. Okay, thank you very much. You can stay if you like.
Sure, make our meeting last longer.
Oh, and then skip right out.
In the chat, was that for us? Oh, okay.
Okay, so that brings us to my agenda's a little off here. Well, it's because it's over here. So there are 3 items for information, correspondence for information. The letter that we sent to BC Hydro, to Ms. Daschuk, the NRM letter that we sent to Michelle Mitchell for the Rural Transit Solutions, and then the letter from Ross Siemens, the mayor of Abbotsford, for information. Thank you much. Councillor Souls moves that for information. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Roper, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. There are no new business items from council. There is one email poll for ratification. That a letter of support be provided confirming the Northern Rockies Senior Society mandate to deliver transit services in the community region. So that was approved electronically. We just need approval, ratification. Move ratification. Councillor Andrews, Councillor Roper, second. All in favor? Opposed? That's carries. Thank you. That brings us to 10.1 councillor reports. Councillor Andrews, please.
On the 26th, I attended the Northeast BC Roundtable. There was a whole day's worth of notes on there. I guess some of the highlights for me was the Muskokachika Backcountry Management Plan is coming out for final review this spring. And then they'll have a front country management plan, which will include Liard River Hot Springs, Stone Mountain Park, Muncho Lake Park, hoping to have a draft out in 2026. Another interesting point, we were talking about the caribou. Even though with all the fires in the area, there's still just as many caribou. They're just grazing in different spots. And
That's good news.
yeah, they so far with what they've been looking at. Next meeting's April 23rd. I've got minutes available. And I'd just like to kind of give a little shout out to Jim Little. I attend these meetings quite frequently, and he's always a very strong advocate for the Northern Rockies, and he's always supporting initiatives. He seems to be a non-local who should be a local guy here because he's definitely a good supporter.
Thank you very much.
So February 26th, I attended the BC Rural Health Network Board meeting, the 27th, the Chamber Board meeting, the 28th, virtual presentation around the work being done to modernize the Local Government Act. So Don Lidstone did a remarkable job of presenting a very complicated set of proposed areas of discussion. And there is a Survey Monkey out for review. I don't know if anybody else got it but me. I attended the session, so I got it. But I don't know if, because I think this is something that we should all be looking at, including staff. Like, so I don't know if staff has been brought into any of this. No, I'm looking not. Anyways, it was 4 hours of scintillating conversation. Mr. Lidstone bringing up huge areas of concern that would have huge ramifications for all of us. So I think we should get more involved. March the 1st, I virtually attended the all-day Saturday NCLGA board meeting. Anybody else want to take this over from me? I'm more than willing to give it up. March the 5th, I attended the CRT and the seniors roundtable meetings. March 7th, I attended the CHIP meeting. And something I learned at that meeting is during hospital service disruptions, BC Emergency Health Services have been bearing the cost of increased service levels. As I understand this, it's now the health authorities that are responsible for these increased costs, and consequently, BC Emergency Health Service levels must be approved by the health authority. So for example, when Fort Nelson General Hospital is shut down, I purposely use that word, BC Emergency Health Services have been bringing in higher level paramedics. Now they have to get that approved by the health authority before they can bring them in. So this might affect how we are, what's going to happen in the future. And it's not just here, it's across the province. Also on March the 7th, I attended a presentation by Corey Hirsch, former NHL goalie, who spoke on mental health issues. And this was part of the Fort Nelson First Nations Health Weekend. And also just a shout out to the Mile 300 Figure Skating Club, who hosted their annual carnival, and huge shout out to everybody involved. There was so many skaters and so many people and decorations and sets and everything. And also congratulations to the players, coaches, and humans involved in U18 Scotiabank, who brought home the banner this weekend.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, are there any others report? Okay, then I'll just briefly talk about the Wildfire Resiliency Committee meeting of February 27th that I attended. We had a presentation there by Doug Smith, the BC Wildfire Service. He's the Deputy Fire Center Manager. He gave us a report on the work that they're doing with respect to the hotspots in and around the fires that are local, the holdover fires. Accessing from the Deer River Road. We talked about communication between us. We also talked a little bit about the holdups on the 301 pile burning, and that was resolved very quickly. And they started doing that this past weekend. So that was good. We found that there was a weather window, and sure enough, everybody got involved and got that burn going. So I didn't look to see if it was completed or how, but quite a few of those piles are gone. We talked about getting Burns Lake Community Forest Manager to come in and have a discussion with some of the best practices that they've done. There's some discussion about the frustration with the process, that it feels like we're making some gains, and then there's a permit that gets in our way, or somebody, wants to charge us stumpage in order to burn a pile, or, so we had some good discussion around, the group going forward, and then there being some kind of a bureaucratic stop to it. But we worked our way through that particular issue, and that worked out. We had a little bit of discussion on what Fort Nelson First Nation's been doing and some of their best practices. Then we talked about some questions that we might have for BC Hydro. So we had on our agenda here the letter that we had sent to BC Hydro, asking them to attend the committee meeting to talk about different things around wildfire, how they can help us with wildfire mitigation, as well as potentially how more contractors, local contractors, can actually go to work for BC Hydro doing some of these projects. They're coming on the next meeting, so the 13th on Thursday. They'll sit with the committee virtually and answer questions from the committee. So I know there's still a lot of emotion running with respect to BC Hydro and the fire from last year and the evacuation, and so I wanted to contain a little bit of that. And so I asked the committee last week if they could come up, what are the questions that you have for BC Hydro, so that we can get to the meat of it, and I can pass these questions along to BC Hydro so that they can be prepared to answer the questions and maybe take some of the emotion out of the room. And so there were again questions around local contracting, the difference between brushing and actually doing fire smart mitigation, right? So there's brushing to keep the hydro lines from going out of service, and then there's actually removing. And so I think the committee would like to know BC Hydro's definition of what that looks like. What steps they're taking from a regulatory compliance barriers, and then what are the barriers that exist for local contractors to bid on hydro projects, and how can we remove those barriers? So then staff did a bit of a box tutorial for some of them who are having trouble getting into box, and our survey that will be coming out is complete. I think it was just went over to our communication department to make sure that the timing is right with respect to, all of the different surveys that have been going out from us lately. There's been, I think, 2 already, and then this one third, and then there's a questionnaire on the budget potentially. So our communications department is just looking to time that. I've asked them to get it out before the end of March, because that's what I wrote in the pulse. That's the commitment I gave in the pulse that we would do. We'd get it out before the end of March. So that was a very, very good meeting. I also did a few things on the weekend. I attended the curling 75th curling bonspiel, the flyaway bonspiel that they had on the weekend. It was well attended, 16 teams. 3 teams from out of town, so it was good. One from Fort Smith. The Bissett girls were here from all over BC. That was good to see that family back. And I think there was one other, that group, and I'm just drawing a blank on where they were from. But it was well attended. Yeah, it was good. And then Sunday, I also would give Mile 300 Figure Skating Club a great pat on the back, and all the parents and skaters that did what they had to do. There must have been it just went so smoothly, and there was so many costume changes. Like there must have been, well, there was 101 kids. They said there must have been at least 101 parents in the back helping them get ready, grandparents and parents, helping them get ready, because they just were coming out steady. And yeah, it was really good. It was really fun to watch them. And it makes you proud, really, that that a small community like this can put on such a show like that. So it was very good. So kudos to the Mile 300 Skating Club. And that's what I've done over the last couple of weeks. So yeah, it was good. Okay, that's council reports. Are there any notice of motions for the next meeting? Okay, that brings us to the public session, question and answers around the budgets, priorities, or council business. Anybody in gallery, staff, anybody online? No, thank you. Okay, then a resolution to move into a closed meeting for section 91, subsection 1 of the community charter. Moved by Councillor Andrews. Second by Councillor Gerwing. Thank you very much. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. Thank you. We'll take a bit of a break. Okay, thank you very much. We are finished with our closed portion of tonight's meeting. There is nothing to, no reports to rise with. So we can adjourn the regular meeting now. So I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next time.